Welcome to The Real and the Woo. I'm your host, Laurie Stern. Join me as I invite experts and friends to discuss a range of topics, from the factual and practical to the mystical and magical. Consider this your virtual happy hour filled with lively, authentic, and meaningful conversations meant to inform, inspire, and ignite your curiosity. Whether you are very real or super woo, this podcast is just for you. Welcome to The Real and the Woo. I'm your host, Laurie Stern, and today I'm with Ronna Belinky, who is the female founder of Workflows by Ronna, and she helps women clear the mental load with personalized planning systems so they can feel calm, organized, and present at work and at home. Hello, Ronna, and thank you for joining me.
Hi, Laurie. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Rana, not unlike some of my guests, was a little nervous coming on to the show. And what I love about you is what I will echo to you, that I don't see you as a nervous Nelly at all. And in fact, you've been killing it on social media. I know you've been stretching that muscle a little more than you prefer. And when we're growing a business, that is a muscle to stretch. And so, congratulations on all of the work that you're doing and all the ways that you're showing up. And I'd love for you to tell my listeners just a little bit more about your work, how you came up with the name, because I love that, and anything else you'd like to begin with.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for the nice things you said. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I'm glad I don't, seem like a nervous Nelly. I'm doing a good job, I guess. So I started Workflows by Ronna, and when I first started it, it was actually completely different than the business that I have now. I was working with nonprofits and small businesses to create digital workflows in Google Sheets for repeatable projects and processes. And I called them workflows. And I think that all the work that I do with people and with businesses are actual workflows. But when I started it, it was completely different than what it is now. And now I'm doing a lot more coaching with clients and workshops for personal and business planning. But at the beginning,
Okay.
it was they were more digital workflows.
So, can you explain? Like, I grew up with an older sister who was a debater, and I learned how to flow, like the argument. So, when you say workflows, I think of like flow sheets. So, I don't know if it's important, but I'm curious about it, which is why I do this podcast. Like, what is a workflow that's digital, and how has that changed to what you're doing now?
Yeah. So workflows that are digital, the ones that I create for clients and that I started out creating were processes that have a beginning and an ending, and that there are a lot of different steps for the entire process. So, for example, I created one for a nonprofit that had a 5K, and it's an event that they had every year. And so I created a process in Google Sheets of all the tasks that they needed to plan the 5K. So what we did is at the top there is the date of the 5K, and then there's a formula in Google Sheets so that, let's say, the next time they do their 5K, all of the to-do dates auto calculate. Because one of the core principles that I have is don't reinvent the wheel for every process that you have. That's repeatable. So, for instance, your podcast, I'm sure there's a process that you have for each guest. And so my whole thing is you do this over and over again. So why reinvent the wheel? So let's create a process for you, and it breaks down every single task. And then the next time you do it, you just change the date, the air date of your podcast, and all of the to-do dates auto calculate. So I look at it as a workflow as, first of all, the way that you work. And I have a workflow for my business that starts out as a weekly planning process that's on Friday afternoons that I plan for the next week. And so that my work flows better and
Mhm.
easier, because I think that we're all so exhausted by all the things that we need to do. And I don't believe it needs to be so complicated. So I really try to simplify the process.
I love that. Yeah, I was when I even before I got on here today, I was going to ask you the different emphasis on the syllables in the title of your brand because you can say workflows or workflows, and you just did that. So it's both and, right? So it's how your work flows, but it's also creating flow for the work that you're already doing. And I love how that connects to so many things right off the bat. I'm like, that goes into meal planning when you talk about women, especially running businesses and families, because families are businesses. I've said this a lot on my show. There's no harder job than being the CEO of a family. So, like, streamlining anything matters. And so, have you jumped into other markets other than business, like meal planning?
Yes. So my Notebooks with Rana workshop is all about personal task management. And I believe that it's really geared towards parents because of all of the things that we need to do for our households. And I couldn't agree with you more that running a household is the hardest job. Uh, it was very hard for me when I became a parent. It was very challenging. I talk about it openly. I don't have a lot of opportunities to talk about it, but it was
Mm.
very difficult for me.
How many
Especially
kids do you have?
I have 2 kids. I have an 18-year-old and a 14 no, a 19-year-old. Oh my gosh, she just turned 19, and I have an almost 15-year-old. So, I keep on forgetting to say that she's 19 now. It's
Yeah.
wild, but
Have
it
you
was really
have you
hard.
gotten into the, age group where now you have to enter their birth year to see how old they are, or you're not there yet?
Not yet, not
Okay.
yet.
Yeah.
I can imagine
Just
that's coming
just
though.
wait. Yeah.
And when they were 4 and 8, I created this process for myself that I'm now teaching in a workshop that I never imagined my business would be doing. So when I started Workflows by Rana, it never occurred to me, "Oh, you could actually teach people about personal time management and planning also." And so now I'm teaching this process, and it's all about personal task management and all of the things that you need to do for your household. And I really enjoy teaching it. I think it simplifies planning. I think that we all keep so many things in our head, and I just don't think it needs to be that complicated. And teaching this process and using this process allows me to be more present in my personal life because I don't have
Mm,
everything in my head and trying to keep track of everything. It's in a reliable place.
yeah.
So, yeah.
There's so much to unpack there. First of all, presence is stepping into my wheelhouse. We'll get to that. My kids can always tell when my cogs are spinning. You know, I get that look on my face, and depending on the look, they know to approach the bench or not approach the bench. And so anytime you can help busy moms, busy women get rid of that look and be more approachable and present is such a gift. I want to ask you, so you're raising a 4-year-old and 8-year-old, you said at the time. What was the inspiration? What was the aha moment? This is a two-parter. So what was the aha moment that you thought, I'm organizing my life in a way that is teachable? And then knowing that you're a little bit of a nervous Nelly, was it a struggle for you to believe in yourself that you had something valuable to teach? And then how did you first get there?
Yeah, those are good questions. Well, I will say that I don't want to bring anything into the world that is not really good. I think it's from my days in TV sitcom production where there was a really big emphasis on excellence. And so before I launched this process, the workshop that I now teach people, I had 4 focus groups for it. Because
Mm,
before wanted to take any money from anybody, I really wanted to make sure that the process was understandable and that people were getting something out of it. And so that's always been a struggle. I wanted to give a really good product. And so I did that. And I have a friend, my friend Jill Rivkin, she's also in the Dear Founder Forum with us. I don't know if you've met her, but I told her my process and she got it all on paper for me into worksheets because it's a very, very simple process. But I didn't know how to explain it or teach it to somebody. I've never been a teacher, never ever, but I believe in this process so much that I just needed the confidence to know that it was understandable and that people would get something out of it. And so those focus groups were really helpful because we were able to take the worksheet and say, okay, this makes sense. This doesn't make sense. We're going to make these changes. So when I actually launched the workshop, the nervous Nelly in me could feel a little bit more confident,
Mm,
because I felt like I had done a lot of the work to make sure that the product was as good as it could be. And I learn every
yeah.
time I teach it, which is amazing.
I was gonna say, I mean, I learn every time I teach, and I've been doing fitness and wellness for over 40 years, and I always learn something every time I step into a room or work with a client. So a couple of things, you've said a couple times you're not a teacher, and I would argue as mothers, we're teachers. So when you're raising a kid, you're like, you don't want to bring anything into the world that's not valuable. Obviously, you're a wonderful mother because you're raising valuable children and you see value in that work. And so you've always been a teacher. And you touched on the sitcom. I just want to call it out. When I first met Rana before we got on the podcast a few months ago already, it's been a while, she let me know that we have someone in common because he was a guest star on Will and Grace. And you were behind the scenes, you said, a producer? Will
I
and
was a
Grace?
production coordinator, so I worked in the production office.
Yeah, so that's just super fun. Everybody knows that show, and we remember that show. So that's super cool that you came from that background and you leveraged that background because between you and me and the lamppost, I never would have considered a focus group. But that's just good business when you're creating a new product. I've been paid by those companies that hire people to test foods and things and give feedback. It's great money and it's great fun. And I've seen the products on the shelf. I'm like, oh, I did that. Oh, I did that. So I love that you took it that direction. I don't think everybody would know or think about doing that. They just have an idea. I'm in this category. It's how I podcast, it's how I teach. I have an idea and I just go with it. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And so I don't come from a marketing or business background in that way. And so that's fascinating. I am now guided to ask you, would you consider, because I would sign up, to help other women develop focus groups?
No, that's actually not anything that I've ever thought about.
Well,
I mean, I
maybe
think
you will now.
it's really complicated. I'm being totally sarcastic. I got my friends to do it. The first
Well,
2,
I
okay,
did
so the
that when I
first
started teaching.
for the first 3, they were my friends, but then the last one, we reached out to a Facebook group, and Jill did it for me because we wanted it to be anonymous. We didn't want people to know going into it what it was, that they'd have preconceived notions, but she put it out to a Facebook group and said, "We'd love to get a group of women who will take this workshop that we're planning and that we're working on." And 5 women came, and it was fantastic. They were not any women I knew. So the first 3 were friends, but the last one was all strangers. They gave me great feedback. It was
Yeah.
wonderful. And they got a workshop out of it because it was really at that point, at the 4th one, we were pretty planned by then. And we had really worked on those worksheets and everything that
See,
I was
well, I
going to
mean,
say.
right there, I never would have considered putting it out on to a Facebook group that way. And you didn't describe what the workshop was like at
We
all?
We did. We said it was about
Oh,
it was personal planning, and you're gonna
okay.
create a notebook for your personal tasks. There wasn't a ton of details, but 4 women really wanted to take it, and it was wonderful, and the reason why, think about the person that you are and that I am. You're very go with the flow, okay? I'm getting better at it as I get older, but I think part of that is, I don't just jump into things. I will say though that when I started my business, I didn't really have much of a plan. So that is the one thing that I've done without a plan, but I like to go into things with a plan and knowing that I have a good product.
Yeah.
But we can't 100% know because I didn't know people would get so much out of it or pay for it after I had the focus groups, but it gave me a
Mhm.
little bit more comfort.
Yeah, no, that's huge. I mean, comfort, obviously, the more you repeat something, which is what you do, the easier it becomes and the more comfortable and confident. You've said that word a couple of times too. Confidence is key. And how do we find that confidence is subjective to the individual. And where I come at it is through our individual instructions, which are the chakras. But for people that don't speak that language, I have rephrased it. So when you understand your internal wiring, then you're better able to tackle tasks and be less triggered and be a lot more forgiving to yourself also, right? And there's nothing more triggering than putting yourself out there in any way, shape, or form and then hearing feedback, right? So it's amazing that you were open and balanced enough within yourself, or maybe you're going to share that it was hard initially, but receiving feedback isn't easy for everyone because depending on your internal limitations and your internal programming, people might be saying the nicest, most helpful things to you, but you're not going to hear them in that way. All you're going to hear is negativity and criticism. So, was that happening at all initially?
That's such a good question. So I will say that I am very, very open to feedback, and I truly understand that it will only make me better. And it is very hard for me when somebody doesn't like me and when I feel like people are upset with me. And it doesn't happen to me often. And I'm not trying to brag or anything, but when it does, it's really hard for me.
Does it happen with, have you noticed, does it happen with a certain type of person or a certain gender or profession of someone who's offering that feedback to you?
That's a good question. I don't think so. It's not, I don't notice anyone in particular. And again, it doesn't happen often, but it's a very uncomfortable place for me to be. Well, I feel like I'm a recovering people pleaser, and I'm getting a lot better at it, but it's a challenge. But I do really appreciate feedback, and I know it will make me better, and it's hard.
So let me ask you about the people pleasing. I like to tell my clients that's not a bad thing, being a people pleaser. So you don't have to recover from it unless it's kicked you in the ass. So when you describe yourself in that way, could you expand on perhaps, if you'd like to share, what you mean by that? What are you recovering from?
Sometimes I feel like I don't want anybody to feel uncomfortable, and so I overcompensate. That's a really good question. I'm trying to think of the way to answer that.
So, okay, you can think about it while I maybe offer
Yeah.
some things. So, people pleasers deplete themselves. They overgive and overdo. And so, to their own detriment, whether that's now you're late for your soccer game or your business meeting because you've stayed on the phone longer than you intended. You're over explaining yourself because you want to make sure that your words are landing in the way you're intending. Or another way you people please is like you over gift, like somebody's given you a gift and you give it right back or give it back times 10. So if that describes any of those things, those are ways that you want to sort of get in check if it puts you in a deficit.
Yeah, I would say that I've experienced definitely the latter 2 things that you said, and I think it's gotten easier for me, and I
Yeah.
know I can't please everybody, and everybody won't be happy with me, but it's hard for me.
Sounds like it's a work in progress. And I'd have to say, every encounter I've ever had with you and everything I hear you put out and see you put out, you don't seem to be the kind of person that would piss a lot of people off as a default. So, what I hear you saying is sometimes it's a struggle and intention comes to mind. We come from an open heart, we come from integrity, we come from this place of wanting to be of service and of help. And whatever we say, whether it's what we write, what we put out on social media, and even in the workshops that we offer, our words might not always be interpreted in the way we intend. And of course, if we've hurt someone's feelings or something's been misinterpreted, we say we're sorry. But it's often really not up to us how people interpret us, but it doesn't feel good when that happens. I totally get it.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So thanks for sharing that because I believe that's really universal, especially for anybody doing anything, right? Even just dinner table conversations with girlfriends can go completely haywire, even if you're not on the Real Housewives or whatever. It just takes one thing to go wrong, and now the whole evening is just like in a shitter.
Yeah. I think it's hard with owning your own business because I don't feel like I'm a salesy person,
Yeah.
and so I never want to come off inauthentic, you know?
And I believe in my gut that is really not your problem. So
Yeah.
you just ooze authenticity, Rana. You really do. But it really is hard, especially like you said, people pleaser part of you does want to make an impact in a way that doesn't sound desperate, I guess is what I hear you saying. Like to me,
Yes.
that salesman. And it's hard when you're trying to come up with a price for your workshop because some people are going to say that's too much money and some people are going to say it's not enough money. And pricing really is a big trigger for a lot of us building brands and businesses and putting stuff out there.
So I would say that pricing has been one of the most difficult things for me as a
Yeah.
business owner. Absolutely. You hit the nail.
Have you come up with a workflow for that for yourself?
Well, I will say that at the beginning, so the first 6 months of my business, the only people that hired me were friends and family, and I started at a really low rate, and I've been able to increase my rate, and I think it's all about confidence, and I know you mentioned that before, and I think that my confidence level raising has also allowed me to raise my prices and to know my value. Again, it's challenging, but it's gotten easier, and a lot of that is confidence and
It is,
feedback
and
I've gotten from clients.
yeah, and congratulations because that's huge to make any leap or change in price at all. I upped my prices as well. And initially, I feel badly like the people who have been working with me are grandfathered in to their rate. That's just what I've chosen to do. But we have every right to charge for our valuable time. And I find just energetically, people meet us where we believe we are. And if we charge one price but really don't believe we're worth it, then those are the kind of clients we're going to get also. And we're never going to please those people. But the people who see our price and without pause say, great, sign me up, they're ready to go. And it's so much easier, you know?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I found, and it's so interesting from where I began and really understanding my ideal client.
Yeah. And really, you found your own flow. So as you go, and everybody knows when I start channeling, I start rhyming. I'm like the Dr. Seuss of podcasting, which is why I write a lot about Dr. Seuss. Actually, my Substacks lately have been taking familiar childhood stories or movies and reframing them for the modern bodies we have. And Dr. Seuss has been like my muse of late. So I'll put my Substack in the show notes for sure. But it's
Oh my
fun
god, I love
too,
that.
just sort of rephrasing and reframing things we know because not everybody connects with what I do, but they're like, oh, yeah, I understand that because she put it this way, right? All right, so let's talk a little bit about your spiritual side. This is the real and the woo. And you had mentioned to me before that you practice yoga. Would you like to tell me about that?
Yeah, so sure. So I started practicing yoga when I was 25 and I was living out in Los Angeles working in TV. And I was very stressed out. It was a very busy industry. We were doing so many things at once and I really needed a way to calm my nervous system, and it's something that I've been doing for half my life. Now I still do it on the mat, but my favorite thing is to do it on a paddleboard in the middle
Mm,
of a lake. And so I just get so much joy out of it and peace. And it's my spiritual practice.
I haven't tried it yet, and I know it's hard. And just even getting on a surfboard, learning how to surf, it's really hard. And we don't have a very long season here in Chicago to even do it. So I know some of the gyms around here have pools that do yoga on the board in the pool. Do you do that?
I've never done it. I feel like there's no comparison to being on a lake out in nature. So I've never tried it in a pool. 'Cause That the what I get the most out of is just being outside and in the middle of the lake. It's
Yeah,
beautiful. And you should come with me this summer. It's really
I'm going
calm.
to.
And we anchor, so you're anchored to the bottom of the lake, and it's just I would love for you to come with me.
Okay, deal. It's a date. And I was
Great.
going to say that's a Snapple fact by Rana, like one of those trivia questions. What people might not know about me is, and you can be like,
Oh.
I rock a paddleboard when I do yoga. I
And
love
you'll
that.
if you my social media in the summer, I feel like everything's about stand-up paddleboard yoga.
All right. So you've got your workshops, and is there anything new with any of those or any upcoming workshops you want to share?
So I actually decided that I'm only going to be offering one scheduled workshop a year, and that's going to be in January. So I'm not offering another one until January of 27, but I am offering it for groups. So if you have a group of friends, a book club, your mahjong group, coworkers, I'm offering it for curated groups. I think it's really fun to plan with your friends. So I
Yeah.
offer it that way. I offer it one on one. I also offer it to couples. I've taught a couple of couples, and that's been really amazing. I think that's very needed, and not a lot of people are into doing that, but it's been really fun. So those are the ways that I'm teaching it right now, and we'll see where it takes me. I also started a planning group cohort that you can be in if you've taken the workshop before. So it's for
Mm.
all alums, and that launched a couple weeks ago, and I'm really excited about that. And it's just a way to really, use your notebook better, tips, tricks, best practices, and challenges so people can share it in a group setting.
Wow. So tell me about the couples. Is it helping them plan relationship, intimate date night things or ways to be a better couple? Or is it how to teach couples how to organize their lives together? Because, especially when you're growing a family, we have 4 kids. And so there were many seasons where my husband and I were tag teaming. Thank God for my warming drawer. No one would have eaten dinner, but like you're going here, you're going there, you're going here. You take this one there, I'll take this. So is that what you talk about?
It's not those logistics, it's more about dividing up the household tasks that you have that repeat every year. So let's say, the doctor's appointments you need to make for you and your children. It's booking the snowplow. It's planning the birthday parties. It's all the things that happen on a repeatable basis that I think a lot of women feel like they take on themselves, and there are some couples where it's mostly the men. I hate to generalize, but I will say that the mental load is real for a lot of women. And so it really involves both people in dividing up the tasks in a more equitable way because a lot of it falls on the woman.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of the Today Show Steals and Deals, and I watch The View because I like the View Your Deals. And just the other day, I forget which one it was, but there was like this go box, let's say. So if God forbid your house is on fire or there's going to be a storm or somebody passes away, it's just one place to keep all of your important documents, your passwords, your bank accounts, who's the attorney, blah, 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 blah. So I'm imagining you're giving families this box, like couples this box, because usually one person schedules a snowplow and the other person has no idea what the phone number even is, and stuff like that. And so I love that you
Yes.
do that. What a great idea.
So one of the things that I give out is a brainstorm task list, and it's for everybody. So if you do it one-on-one with me, if you do it as a couple, and if you do it in a group setting, all the worksheets are the same for some couples. And this goes for men and women. One member of the household might not know any of the things that the other person is doing. And this opens your eyes to everything that people are doing. And then it's a very simple way of dividing it so it's
Mm.
more equitable because it's so easy for it to fall on one person. And sometimes, often, so much of this work is invisible. And one of the women who took it with me said, the invisible work is now visible. And just that small piece is such a game changer.
Well, now you're talking about empowerment, and which is what I help people connect with their empowered authenticity. Using words like empowerment and authenticity can be triggering for people. They have no idea even how to find either of those or both when you put them together. And what I love also is, especially in terms of, a couple with children, now the kids are seeing, mommy and daddy communicating, which is huge. That not just one person always does X and one person always does Y. That you can be a mommy who does this and a daddy who does that. So it's such a beautiful way to model great parenting and behavior for your kids just through communication and job sharing and like you said, like making the invisible visible. So
Thank you for saying that. Thank you. And I really am trying to be a role model for both my kids. And there are different seasons for different things, and things are harder at some points, being a parent, especially. And so things have gone in waves, but I feel like my husband and I divide things in a great way. And we never did the workshop together. but we've kind of figured it out. But it's really a valuable way to figure it out because it's hard to do it on your own. But the role model piece is huge.
There's so many ways to apply this idea, whether you're starting a small business or running a business. You've got a child, I assume, in college. Kids going off to school need to get organized. And of course, they have their own process as well. But this can be really geared for so many different markets. And that's why I want to collab with you so much because the work I do touches on parents and parenting, and not just for women, but my focus right now is women leaders, but the men too. Men, if you're breathing, you have chakras, and if you're breathing, you have instructions. And everybody is meant to understand how they're made so they can lead and live with more clarity and ease and authenticity and joy. And now it's time for Joy on the Five. Ronna Belinky, I gave you some homework and I had you set your alarm at 5 minutes to the hour. And I'd love you to share with my listeners a few or as many examples as you'd like to share of what that did for you and what came up for you.
Okay, so I felt like it was a very good reminder of pausing, especially when you're because I can get very, very focused on things. And it was just a good reminder of take a break, take a rest, because I always say that taking a break is very important, but it's very difficult for me. So this was not an easy exercise, but I loved it. It really made me think about the small things like a hot shower, good coffee,
Yeah.
getting support from my husband. There was a point where we had a talk and it was right my alarm had gone off. It made me appreciate him. And so it really made me think about the small moments and connections with people because so many of the things that I wrote down were about connections with people.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah.
It was a great exercise.
Well, I'm so glad to hear you got so much out of it. I do it intentionally because joy is a muscle we need to build or remind ourselves that we have every right to experience it. And we just forget to build time for it or, like you said, pause. And pausing is huge, especially for women. I have clients, and I'm guilty of this myself, who were raised in a home where rest looked like laziness. It's not so easy for you to rest. And when you're on the hamster wheel of growing a business or a family or whatever it is, or you're just trying to get to the next thing, even if it's something fun, like a canasta game or mahjong, we forget to just take those sacred pauses and just connect in, whether it's with ourselves or anybody else. So I love that you interpreted that way. Thank you.
I really
Uh,
agree with I agree with what you said, and I will say that I felt like when I was a young parent, I felt a lot of guilt about resting, and I
yeah,
don't anymore at all.
good. Good for you. And in that same way, because I really haven't known you that long, and we've been to the forum, the live events, which are so valuable and wonderful. And then we go around and we share, some of our wins. And you inspired me so much because I have my own podcast and I'm really trying to get onto other people's podcasts because what better way to elevate what it is that I do than talking about myself to somebody else?
Mm.
And you shared that you stretched again, and if you'd like to share, because I think it's really inspiring to anybody out there who wants to take a little risk or a large risk and just send that email, pitch yourself. And it's okay to talk about yourself. We're meant to. And so I'd love you to share that story.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. So over the summer, I pitched myself to a planning podcast, and I'm obsessed with planning. So many of the things that I teach are all about planning. And I had been listening to a podcast since the beginning, and I cold pitched myself to her in an email. And there was a lot of back and forth, and she finally said yes. And it was very pivotal for my business because a lot of planners are my ideal audience. A lot of the people that follow me and that hire me already are very organized. They just either need to level up or they may have too many systems and they need to consolidate. And so, me reaching out to her was very uncomfortable, like you said. And I just feel like I keep on putting myself into these uncomfortable situations. I mean, I'm forcing myself to be on podcasts, like being on a guest on a podcast is not my comfort zone, but I continually put myself in this space because I know it's just so good for me and it's a muscle like you talked about
Exercise
getting
it.
yes, exactly. And so I feel like I get better at it each time I do it. And she, has a big following. She's not on social media at all, which is so interesting, but she's had a blog since 2004. So she has a really big audience. So putting myself out there to her was very hard. I did it and I'm so glad I did it.
Yeah. Well, it shows all over your face too. Give yourself a pat on the back. It's a huge thing to do and also get what you're hoping for because it's like, I did that, right? You got to own that, honey bun. So
Thank
that's
you.
great. Tenacity is my middle name in a lot of ways. And sometimes it bites me in the ass and sometimes it gets me exactly what I want. But even I catch myself, is this really happening sort of feeling, or do I deserve this? Which is a lot of the work that I do with people is work that I've done on myself and still continue to do. I think we all catch ourselves in that feeling of, I really deserve this, whether it's an increase in my pricing, to be on somebody's show, to get in front of this group and talk about what it is that I do. And it takes a lot of balls and confidence and guts, but just faith and trust that you're exactly where you need to be at the exact right time. And for me, I can say, and I'm sure this is probably true for you, if I make a difference to one person, that's it. It's like Fabergé Organics, whether she tells two friends and so on and so on. I've seen the change in one person, and that's beautiful.
Absolutely beautiful. I couldn't agree with you more and I feel the same
Yeah.
way. And I love what you do because I feel like you really get people to think about things in a way that a lot of people are not talking about, And it's so helpful to realize these things about ourselves to make life more easeful. And that's really what I get a lot out of what you teach people.
Okay, so I'm going to put you on the spot because I really do need
Uh,
your help.
okay.
Could you please describe to people what it is that you think that I do?
Well, I think that you help people understand themselves better so that they can live a more easeful life and a more joyful life.
That
Is that right?
that's what I hope the message is. That's what I keep thinking the message is, but for some reason, I people just don't understand still, and so I'm working on that.
Well, I'm going to say this to you. So I feel like I do the same thing for people in how they plan and they work and they live because I think a lot of people don't take the time to understand themselves and so they set themselves up for failure when it doesn't have to be that hard. And these are things that I've learned over many, many years of reading time management books and productivity books and realizing there's no one size fits all answer for everything. And that's why we need to understand ourselves better because once we understand ourselves, then we can set ourselves up for success. And with your clients, I'm sure if you're not a confident person, realizing what you can do to work on that so that you can set yourself up for more comfortable situations or more success or whatever it is, but a lot of people don't take the time, right, to really
Right,
think about themselves. And so everything could be so much easier if everybody worked the same way and had the same brains. Everyone would be using the same planner and be using or using the same digital process. But that makes no sense to me.
right.
So
Yeah.
take the time to understand yourself because things don't have to be so complicated. I don't know. Does that resonate?
It does, thank you, and that's custom design wellness is just what you said. I even say it on my website. There is no one size fits all path to understanding yourself because everybody's got different upbringings and default settings and
Hmm.
wiring that we're meant to I equate our bodies like tables that we buy from IKEA, and because I work with the chakra system as a lens, they have 7 legs. And can you use a table with only 4 or 5? Yes. But eventually, if you're not using all of the legs or they're not balanced in the same way, you're overusing some, you're underutilizing some, the table's going to wobble and something's going to break, right? So, and when we buy those tables, they come with instructions. And what I love about this analogy is that right there is one of those Myers Briggs tests because I have clients, and I'm sure you work with people just like this, where they're like, "Well, I built 1,000 of these tables. I don't need these fucking instructions." And they throw them out. They build the table, and it doesn't work so well. Or they follow the instructions to the letter, and now they're freaked out because there's extra screws and bolts when they always give you extra screws and bolts. And so, how we even just build a table is such a lesson on how we're wired. And so, you see that with the people that walk into you, like they're writing down everything you're saying versus writing it a little bit, doing it a little bit, just that balance. And I have a friend who every year the Container Store would come out with their planner, and it was our favorite planner before the school year because it was just big enough. It had a spiral so you could open it up completely. And I learn by doing. So I have my calendar on my phone, but I have to write stuff down. And so she and I would like, "What color did you get? What color did you get?" It would be our favorite thing because it had just enough space for everything. But when I see you describing your workflows, workshops, I see it's almost like a craft project. Like back in the day, what was that, scrapbooking?
That's so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's so interesting because I teach a process and the tool is up to you. So I call it Notebooks with Rana, but you don't have to use a notebook or you don't have to use the branded notebook that I sell.
Uh-huh.
That's all about the process and everybody's brain works differently. So somebody might use my notebook and then someone might use the digital version I have. Somebody might use the notebook and add stickers like you're
Right.
comparing it to a scrapbook or might write in colors. It's so particular to the person.
But I love that
Yeah.
it's so universal in the way that you've built it because, like you said, not everybody learns the same way. So
Absolutely.
you are an understander of people yourself, my friend.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I try, and I feel like I've learned so much through this business and really feel like my compassion for people has just grown because I understand there's so many different ways of thinking and doing and processing things.
Yeah. And your compassion connects with your passion. And so, in that way, I would like you to remind everybody how to find you and anything that you'd like to share before we end our time together.
Sure. So you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Workflows by Rana. I'm also on Pinterest. That's new. And I've got a website. It's workflowsbyrana.com. I have a newsletter where I share tips and tricks, and I'm also on LinkedIn.
Okay. Well, Rana, you're a fabulous lover of helping people, and it just oozes from you with all that you do. And I'm just so grateful that I got to know you and I'm getting to know you better and cheering for you on the sidelines. And so, for anybody that wants to work with Rana, everything will be in the show notes. And everybody that wants to work with me, same thing. Sign up for my newsletter. You're already here listening to this podcast, and you can watch us on YouTube on my channel, and I will also link that. And thank you so much for playing with me today on The Real and the Woo, Rana. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, and I love what you do. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Thanks for helping me.